Hi everyone, I'm Paul Mahoney, or you might know me as Porobo. I'm trying something new here by narrating a video rather than just showing a pure time-lapse of me modelling something. It might be a bit rough, but I hope it's somewhat useful to someone. And also, I apologise for the reverb, and if I kind of sound nervous or shaky, that's just how I am. And I just bought a new house and it is very empty, hence the echoes. Anyway, this video is going to be pretty much a making of video and a mini tutorial where I explain how I made this model, which is Akko from Little Witch Academia. I'm not going to go very in depth, but I'll try and highlight things what I find important when modeling an anime character. When making anime models, references are very important. It can make or break the 2D illusion if you don't come prepared. Everyone knows what the character you're making looks like on a subconscious level, and if you don't nail the likeness, the model will look kinda off. When choosing references, you should only get them from official sources. I wouldn't be getting fan art in most cases. It's got nothing to do with their quality, but most of the time they're all in different styles, which means they don't really help replicating the character, because you want it to look as close to the original source as possible. When I say official sources, I'm usually talking about the art drawn by the main artists, like the key art or promo art. Also screen grabs from the anime, and there are usually character sheets on the official websites of said anime. Other than full body refs, I like to get a lot of images of the face, as I find that the most important part of the character. I'll always get the face front on and also a profile or side view. And then I'll get various images of the head in different angles. Then once I feel like I have enough references, then I'll proceed to the modelling process. I mostly start by modelling the head. Depending how I feel, sometimes I'll start off by box modelling the head in 3ds Max, or sometimes I'll sculpt it in ZBrush. For this model I decided to sculpt in ZBrush first. You can't see it from the main footage here, but I work on two monitors. On my second monitor I'll have my references available in view, so while modelling I'm frequently comparing my model to the references, trying to keep the model looking as close to the source as possible. So starting from a sphere, I try and get the form of a generic anime head, but still trying to keep it close to the size and shape of the actual character's head. I don't start refining or going into details until the near end of the sculpt, only the main shape is important for now. While blocking out, I'll use the Dynamesh and Remesh functions a lot until I get a good shape with clean enough a topology to work with. I'm cringing a little bit here looking at my early attempts, as it doesn't look correct, but as you'll see later on, after various passes, the head starts to look closer to what you expect. I also create a proxy hair mesh sometimes, as it's hard to know if you've got the face right or not, so this just helps a little bit. This mesh is just for visual purposes, so it doesn't have to look like exact perfect. And I might draw eyes and a mouth for the same reason. Once I'm happy with the head sculpt, I'll import it to 3ds Max, where I'll start to refine it. Here I start lining up the mesh with reference planes with my front and side images. I go back and forth from 3ds Max and ZBrush using the GoZ plugin to just use whatever tools that works best for me at the time. A lot of what I do in 3ds Max is lining up the edges and verts of the model to the reference planes while using the connect and cut functions to further refine the mesh a bit more. You'll see throughout the time-lapse that I'm assigning colours to the model already. I don't texture this model traditionally by unwrapping the model and then using a texture map. I actually assign the polygons a colour instead. I'll put a link in the description of an article that I wrote a while back that explains this in more detail. I'll just let the time-lapse play to show some of my modelling processes for a few minutes. I won't show everything as it's all pretty much standard stuff and it made this video way too long. Anyway, I'll be back for the next step of the model. Modelling the rod was pretty straightforward. Luckily for me, there was some handy orthographic references of it on the internet. The hardest part about it was modelling those holes in the rod. It's fine when you're looking at it in a 2D sense, but when trying to make it in 3D, the deeper ends are practically touching each other, so you have to try and avoid making the holes completely see-through. Anyway, I start with a flat plane with the rod reference on it, and then I start cutting into it following the rod's shape. Once the shape is cut out, I delete the excess polygons around it. With the cutout plane, I start adding more loops and more edges and really define the third dimension. I ended up making the holes using the Boolean function and using a modified sphere to subtract into it. I don't think this was the best idea as I had a lot of cleanup work to do regarding the topology, but other than that, the rod was completed successfully without any hiccups. Once I feel that the modelling stage is done, then it's finally time for the fun part, posing the character. But first the model has to be rigged. I didn't record this part, but it wouldn't be very helpful anyway, because since this model isn't for animation, I did a really quick and rough job of it, and any errors that come from it can be fixed by some brute force vert pushing. I used 3DS's cat rigging system to rig this model. It's a great system as it's easy to use and easy to customize rigs, and there's many other features. It's just very versatile. When the model is rigged to a satisfactory standard, I can then start to pose. Going through all my references of Akko and Little Witch Academia in general, there seems to be a lot of depictions of Akko in the air, whether she's on a broom, jumping or free falling. So I wanted to make some sort of free falling pose as they always look cool. I quickly block out the pose here, and once I'm sort of happy with it, I start editing the model directly. As I said before in the video, the face is very important, so I usually edit the head a lot, making sure that the eye shape is right, that the eyes themselves are in the right position, and even the shape and angle of the mouth too. Everything else that I edit is to get a nice silhouette. The rest of this process is just to keep going back and forth from moving and adjusting bones to editing the model. Making environments are one of my weak points, so I'm actually not going to talk about this part from a position of knowledge. Anyway, the idea behind the pose was for Akko to be jumping and falling into some sort of shiny magical abyss. It's also going to be the main light source, so that's to be kept in mind for the last step. So first I create these magic flash light streak things. I'm not too sure what they're called, but you get the idea. I start off with making one of them, and then I duplicate it multiple times while changing the size, rotation and length of each one. I make sure to spread and space them far apart and have Akko right in the middle of them, as it will look great in the viewer with some depth of field, and it will also create a small and cool parallax effect when rotating the camera around the character. After the light streaks, I finally create the main body of light. Now that the environment is sort of done and the character is posed, it's not finished there. I have to start shading the model. First, I changed the character's color palette to match the intensity and color of the main light source. Before you start shading, you have to visualize where the light is coming from. On my model, the light is coming from underneath and on a slight angle towards the character. I select the polygons of where I want to shade, and I change its color to its shaded variant. If I need a round curve or if I need to define a shape to shade, I'll use the cut function to cut into the mesh to create the necessary edges. This goes on for many hours, but once this step is done, then the model is pretty much complete. At the end, I add an outline to the whole character using the backface model duplication method that I think everyone already knows about, but if not, there's plenty of tutorials on how to do that. So that's pretty much it. You can view this character in real time via the Sketchfab link in the description. If you're not already, please subscribe to the channel and please follow me on Twitter @Probo, as I'll usually post my art on there first if you're interested. I hope you enjoyed this video and hopefully you got something useful out of it. It was a nice change of pace for me as I never narrated anything before, and if this is something people like, I might do something similar but a bit more focused. But that's it from me for now. See ya!